I'm Jerod Morris, and I am the one.
Welcome to I Am the One, Entrepreneur Edition, a show that explores the journey of business owners who decided to be the one to make life better for the people they serve. I'm your host, Sonia Thompson, and today's guest is the super cool Jerod Morris. Jerod is the founder of the blog Primility, where he writes about balancing pride and humility in our daily lives. He's also a host of the podcast Assembly Call, a live post-game show that occurs after each men's Indiana University basketball game. These are both projects and communities that he's been building and nurturing over the past few years in addition to his demanding day job. We can learn a lot from Jerod on so many fronts, but especially when it comes to turning your passions into something that's meaningful for a devoted audience. So I am super excited to share this discussion with you, and you're gonna wanna listen all the way to the end because Jerod has a treat for us all. But before we dive into the interview, I wanna let you know that this episode is brought to you by Try Business School. Get the information you need to build the business of your dreams, step by step. Visit trybizschool.com, that's trybizschool.com, and get started with your free e-course, the 4 people you need to build a successful business. Now, let's do this. Here's Jerod. Hey Jerod, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Sonia, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's always fun to talk with you.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. All right, let's go ahead and dive right in. So tell me a little
Okay.
bit about your side projects, Assembly Call and Primility.
Okay, so the Assembly Call, that is my passion project. I grew up as a fan of Indiana University basketball, and so I guess it was about 4 years ago now, a couple of buddies and I who had worked together on Midwest Sports Fans were thinking, it'd be nice if there were a place for fans after IU games to kind of congregate online. And we were like, so why don't we just start it? So we just kind of started this post-game show on a whim, not really having any long-term plan for it or really knowing where it would go. And 4 years later, here we are with, a really loyal audience that has been built and really, we've evolved the show and we're doing it as a Google Hangout now instead of Blog Talk Radio. So it's just, it's one of those things that we haven't really thought about it from a business perspective yet. Although, at some point I'm sure we will to make the time, to allow us to keep doing it.
Right.
But it's just one of those things that's evolved because we love it. Like we just love after the games getting on and doing it. And I think that's why the audience has been attracted to it. And Primility that's kind of like my life's passion, which is this idea of, the importance of pride and humility to all of us, but what can happen when they're balanced.
Right.
And, I really think ultimately, as I've thought about it more, it's more about how if we have greater self-awareness, it leads to greater self-determination.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I understand at any given moment what's motivating an action, be it a good action, a positive action, or a bad one, if I'm aware of it, I can make whatever change might be necessary to make it a better action, which should lead to better self-determination and hopefully better outcomes. So it's one of those things that just always made sense to me back in the day, and I feel like the simplicity of it has allowed other people to grasp onto it too. And so I think that has motivated me to be more active in trying to get the message out there and also hopefully allow other people to feel empowered to kind of take it and run with it and use it for however it fits for them.
Right.
So, yeah, thanks for asking me about those. I love talking about those two projects.
Yeah,
so.
well, I love, as you know, the concept of Primility. It's something that I've latched onto very easily, and it's something that I'm able to think about every day. So I'm very pleased that you put your ideas out there, which brings me to my next question. There are lots of
Yes.
people who will sit around and say, I wish there was a X, Y, and Z. But you and your friends sat around and you said, well, there isn't one. Let's go ahead and create it. And you did the same thing with Primility and other projects that you've worked on. What is it that makes you just say, all right, well, it's not out there. Let me just go ahead and start it myself?
That's a great question, because I think to a certain extent I've had an unfair advantage in that the job that I've had, when we started the assembly call, this was before I was with Copyblogger, and I was working for a social media and SEO agency here in Dallas, and then we had developed the hosting platform. But starting these side projects was a great way to learn skills and information I needed for my job. And the same thing is true with Primility to a certain extent. Running that site has also been, kind of I can do it, and it's not like it's totally separate over here. It also helps me with what I do during the day. And so I've been very fortunate that, to be able to have the opportunities to do that. But that said, I still like to think that even if it didn't align so much with what I do for my day job, that I would still have done it because the passion was there. And I think that's the important thing, is that with technology makes it so much easier now to take an idea from it pops into here to putting it out there for other people, and connecting with other people on it. And so I think that's it. It's being able to overcome the fear of putting yourself out there, and then having a genuine desire to connect with other people over that idea that excites you. And so I think that's really what it is, and that's what drove Assembly Call, and I think that's what's driven Primility, and I think that's something that anybody can tap into.
Right. Now, is there once you've had the idea into the actual time whenever you birthed the idea and put it out there, was there a long period of preparation and learning, or was it just more of, hey, this doesn't exist, we should create it, and then you just started?
With the Assembly Call, there was really no preparation time. It was, we should do this. Let's get a Blog Talk Radio account, and I'll call you guys after the game, and let's just do it. Let's do it.
Right.
We didn't, I think we maybe planned that we wanted to have these certain segments of the show, like how to start it, but that was really it. And then it's like, okay, now we're hosting. And we took calls back then, too, which was crazy. So, with Primility, that's something I kind of thought about a long time ago. And so the idea kind of gestated for a long time before I ever really started putting it out there. But I tend to find that waiting for the perfect time never comes. It's best to just get it out there and start, because as soon as you start getting feedback, both internal feedback and external feedback, you can start making it better. So, if you're going to do it. Like because what you can't, you can always do it later or do this, that, or the other, but you can't always get the emotion or the enthusiasm back that you need to start something.
Right.
So when you have that, tap into it and run with it and see where it takes you.
No, that's a great point, because I think a lot of times people have it and they don't ever start because they're so busy waiting for it to be perfect. So,
yeah, and it's never going to be perfect, and just be okay with that, but just get it out there anyway.
Yeah. So you have a pretty demanding full-time job. How is it that you're able to balance these two, not just one, but two side projects that you're so passionate about, and get all the things that you need to done on a day-to-day basis for your real job?
It's interesting that you asked that, because a lot of times I don't feel like I balance it very well at all. Being a Primility subscriber, and thank you for that. I've kind of gone through different. I was doing a Sunday newsletter for a while, and I couldn't really keep that schedule, and I was posting every Tuesday, Thursday, and I think, part of it is having some self-compassion and realizing you're going to make some mistakes along the way, and that, you do have to figure out what works for yourself,
right,
but not too much self-compassion that you aren't still demanding of yourself. Right. So I think it's just about priorities. So I know that my work with Copyblogger comes first, and that those responsibilities have to come first. But that as long as I do that and am able to manage my priorities well, there's still plenty of time for these other things out there. And if I'm doing it well, that what I'm doing on these other projects really can inform what I'm doing with Copyblogger. So there can really be a synergy there. It doesn't always have to be separate.
Right. Now, I've also heard you say on one of your podcasts that you probably started about 10 podcasts over the past 5 years or so. What is it that you like so much about this medium?
Boy, I love the ability to connect. I love knowing that what I'm saying is going to be, going in the headphones of someone else, thousands of miles away or whatever, and they're going to be listening to it, and we're going to have a connection about that. And I think some of the other shows didn't last because there wasn't a higher purpose. Like one of them was about fantasy football. And that's great. Like I enjoy talking about fantasy football. But I don't really care if my recommendation helps your team win on Sunday. I mean, I do, but it doesn't like that's only impacting your life to a certain extent, so it's not that big a deal to me.
Okay.
And it's like with the assembly call, like it's just talking about a basketball game after it's over. But the reason why that has stayed is the community that's developed around it. Mm-hmm. And the emails that we get from people in Brazil who say, sometimes we can't even watch the game out here, but we always tune into your show, so we know what's going on. It helps connect us back to the Hoosier community.
Right.
And so it's feeling that there's like you're a part, you can really be a part of something bigger and you can do it with a blog or with anything, but I think with a podcast, people feel like they know you.
Right.
And I think if you allow yourself to be open to getting to know those people, you can start to get to know them too. And so it's such a great way to build community. And I love that. And that motivates me. And so, some of the other shows, I didn't get that back then.
Right.
I used to think, how can I drive traffic? And now it's about how can I build a connection? And that lasts. The traffic, that can't keep you going when you start to lose a little bit of motivation.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that these are both passion projects of yours. One, because you love Indiana basketball. Another, because Primility is such a life philosophy. Did you have any fear of putting these ideas and putting things that are so close to you out there in the public for them to be able to comment, critique, or have, other strong opinions on that might be different from yours?
Oh, constantly. I constantly have fear that, my knowledge of Indiana basketball, I'm going to, say something wrong or not know enough, and people are going to say, like, well, why is this guy hosting this, this show? There's tons of other people more qualified. And same thing with, with Primility, that, that the idea wouldn't connect, or that it wouldn't mean anything to anybody else, or that people would look at it and say, well, that's wrong. Like, it's silly. These two things aren't, like all of those different things ran through my mind, and they still do with almost every piece of content that I put out. I think it's not really the elimination of the fear. It's just having a better relationship with it, to where you can use that to say, okay, if I'm afraid that I'm not prepared for this post-game show, then what do I need to do to be a little bit more prepared,
Yeah.
Or if I'm afraid that I haven't written this in a way that it will connect with people, well, maybe I need to do another draft before I put it out there. But as soon as it becomes something that is self-defeating and is preventing you from even putting yourself out there at all, now that fear is a bad thing. But I've been trying to work on my relationship with fear a lot. And, I feel like I start to, I'm getting a little bit better at it as I get older and hopefully gain a little more wisdom and experience. But yeah, I think I especially with those two projects, because they are so important, and because it like criticism on those projects, it just naturally hurts more, because it's like, I really care about this.
Right.
So you have to find a way to be comfortable with that and process it in a productive way, instead of in a way that is going to knock you down and not let you get back up.
No, that's totally true. And I read in Seth Godin's latest book he talked about that. You got to know what to do with the fear whenever it comes, because it's going to come. So as long as you put it in the right place and handle it appropriately, you can move forward.
Yeah, and that's so right. And do you have Netflix? Are you a Netflix person?
No.
So there's a documentary on Netflix, and it's called, is it McConkey? Mm-hmm. I think it's called McConkey, and it's about this guy. He's a skier, and I won't go into the whole thing, but this daredevil skier who actually combined skiing with base jumping.
Wow.
And did the most death-defying just stunts that you've ever seen. And I think, sometimes we look at those people and we're like, well, they must just love it, and they're not afraid of anything. But you could see they would film it in the moments before you'd get ready to jump, like he was afraid and scared.
Yeah.
But he just had this relationship with it where he used it to motivate him and channel him into something greater, instead of it making him walk down the mountain. Now you can certainly argue about how smart it was to do those, but in terms of being able to embrace fear and use it to propel you toward your dreams instead of away from them, that's a great example.
Absolutely, it is. That might be something I want to go check out now that you mention it.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good, yeah.
Now, you've learned a lot, I'm sure, since you've been doing all your podcasting and through your side projects, and even with your day job that's so closely related to the mediums that you're using. What advice would you give to your younger self at the point at which you were starting these projects, based upon all these things that you've learned?
Oh boy. Well, for my younger self specifically, it would be about focus on the engagement and on the connection, not the traffic.
Okay.
I think something that a lot of people who are inexperienced in building a community or doing anything online, a big mistake that gets made, and I know it because I made it myself, is paying attention to vanity metrics and feeling like they mean something.
Okay.
They don't. I mean, it's not that you can't monetize 1 million page views in a day, because you can. You can get a nice little chunk of change with it. But what happens tomorrow? Like, how many of those people are coming back? How many are you connecting with? So that it lasts, and so you're actually building something. And so I think that's the biggest. I wish I could beat it into my own head 5 years ago, about the importance of connecting people and building an audience, not just driving traffic.
Yeah, I read something that you wrote recently on Copyblogger about just the power of podcasting, and you told a story about an email that you got from a listener in another country. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, I think what you're talking about is with the assembly call.
Yes. Could you just share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is that's happened a lot.
Okay.
And that was really the turning point for me with the assembly call. Because with that project, every single year when the season ends, I've said, we're not doing this again. Because I do love it, but it's pretty draining. I mean, there can be 2 or 3 games a week. And I'm not a passive fan. Like I really care if they win or lose.
Right.
More than that, I care about seeing the team progress and all that. So I get really into it. And it can be kind of draining at the end of the year. And so literally after every season, I've said, we're not doing this anymore. And then about a month before, and I think Andy and Ryan know now to just kind of wait for me to come around. It's like, he'll come around. But the big change, I think, was before last season, we got, like I was saying, one guy from Brazil, another guy I think was stationed overseas in the military, and probably 5 or 6 others just from overseas, not counting people in the United States, who basically emailed to say how much the show meant to them and how it helped them feel connected to this university community that they missed so much, and that we were kind of the link that pulled them back in. And at that point, it became about something bigger. It wasn't anymore me doing this silly sports show. And that's a big reason why Midwest sports fans, my passion for that project faded, because it was just about sports and driving traffic. This is about a specific team I love and building community. That is so much bigger. And so that's why I think that, and I think part of it is that it's not text on a screen. It's a podcast, and our show is video now. So I think people feel like they know us, and they feel connected. And so just the interaction we get is so much more. And that's all the enthusiasm and motivation I need. I mean, that fuels me.
That's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about a failure that you had over the course of this and what you learned from it?
Oh, boy. There's a lot of them. Do you want failures on those specific projects or just a general failure?
Let's talk about one of those specific ones.
Yeah, I think, especially with Primility, I feel... I look at kind of the last year and a half, because that site really started to take off. It was actually after the Authority event last year, which is when I kind of revamped it and met a lot of people in person who ended up subscribing and started sending out the wristbands and doing a lot more to build the site. And I think I wasn't quite prepared for how much I was basically signing myself up to do in terms of the content schedule I was promising, and then doing everything with mailing the wristbands and everything, and it fell off a little bit. And I think the big failure was that for a certain period there, it kept me from even writing at all. Because as soon as when I was doing the Tuesday Thursday schedule, if I missed the Thursday, now I felt bad about the Sunday newsletter, because it's all anybody's going to be thinking the whole time they read this is, well, you missed Thursday. What's wrong with you? We were expecting this. And which is totally the wrong mindset to have, and then it compounds one mistake with another, and it's all just this self-defeating thinking, and really it's this pride of thinking everybody's just sitting there waiting every day for everything I have to say, and they're going to notice, and then there's this humility over here where it's well, now I feel so bad, and now I feel like I shouldn't be, so I'm on both extremes, and that's why balance is so important. It's okay, I need to, have that balance of the pride and humility where it's okay, make this commitment, and maybe if I can't keep it, then change it, do what works for me and for the audience. And so I think, and I hope that failure, and I do consider it a failure, because when you make a commitment and you go back on the commitment, that's not a good thing to do. But sometimes you do have to do it, and you just need to get up, dust yourself off, and start going again. So I hope that failure leads to success in the future, but I do consider it a failure.
Well, it's a good lesson learned. Things don't always work out quite the way we want them to, but you just got to keep going in the midst of it and know that it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And what has been your proudest moment throughout all of this?
My proudest moment, I think, I'll tell you, with the assembly call, I think it's really the linking of these two projects. Okay. So with the assembly call, just this past year, we started an internship program. And this was another way. Sorry, I got to cough real quick. This was basically another way to make the project bigger, right? To put a bigger purpose on it. And so we had students who started working on the show for us this year. And one of the guys who's just worked so hard and did such a good job, and he just loves the concept of it and loves working with us. And it's basically like, can I do the internship next semester and can I stay on? And he's even started his own post-game show for Chicago Bears games.
That's awesome.
Because he really got excited about the idea of, this post-game show and doing it. And I told him that, I had this grander vision of starting to expand it to other teams and kind of inspire other people to do it. And he took it and ran with it to start his own. And then, just the other day, actually, I saw a subscription come in from him on Primility and then asking for a wristband, and it was one of those great moments where you realize that, time that you've invested with a specific person and things that you've done, even unintentionally, that you didn't know were being watched, had an impact,
right.
And that what you say and what you did mattered and is really having that positive influence on someone. So I think those moments when you see things like that, that's always the proudest moments for me.
Definitely. No, that's a great story. And it's a good reminder that what we do matters. Even when we don't think it is, it does matter.
Someone's watching.
Yep. Any parting words of wisdom for anyone who's thinking about starting a project, whether it's their business, a side passion project, and might be on the fence about moving forward or not?
Just show up. I think start and show up. I think the more that I have spent time online and the more that you look at what succeeds and what doesn't, I think you really realize that success, and really this is success in anything, not just online, but certainly anything online, it's not really a war of aptitude as much as it's just a war of attrition and attitude. And if you just keep showing up and if you have the right attitude with it, you don't have to have all the answers at the beginning. Just start, respond to your audience, respond to yourself with what feels right, develop your gut instinct, and just keep showing up and creating content, and you'll get better. Yeah. And you'll connect better with your audience. And it may not even be this project, it may be the next project, but continue showing up and putting yourself out there. And I think eventually, if you keep doing that with the right mindset, you will succeed.
Oh, that's great advice. Thank you, Jerod. All right, before I let you go, I have the bonus question, which I always have a little fun with. Hopefully my guests do too.
Yes.
Deliver a line from a movie that just sort of sticks in your mind, or, you're always waiting for the great opportunity to be able to say it in conversation.
I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid. Tell me, princess, now when did you last let your heart decide? There you go.
A whole new world. Yay! That's awesome.
I don't know why that just came to me, but I think it's because I was doing a recording with Damon, and he was making fun of me for liking karaoke, and I've always wanted to do that song for karaoke. So
I've heard that you were pretty wonderful at karaoke. Thank you for that.
Yes. Now you'll want to edit that out. You want me to do one again that you can actually use?
No, that's perfect. Not at all. This has been so much fun, Jerry. Thank you for coming and chatting with me today.
It's always fun. Hey, you and I get to see each other in 2 weeks.
Yes, I'm very excited.
I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Yes.
Jerod had so many fabulous things to share, but there was one thing in particular that stood out to me. And that brings us to today's I Am the One challenge. It's great to invest the time in learning from others, but you've got to apply those lessons if you want to make them work for you. So based upon Jerod's insights, here's today's challenge question for you. What project or idea have you been thinking about for a while now that you just need to start? And what's one action that you can take today to get you in motion to start that project? Think about it and then head on over to iamtheone.fm and let me know your answer. Leave it in the comments on the show notes page or even tweet me at Sonia E. Thompson. I'll be on the lookout for you and your ideas. Until next time, keep working on building your dream business so you can make life better. Somebody's waiting on you. Thanks for watching.